We had a mission one day where we were supporting a Marine Special Ops detachment. About 10 minutes before we were due to leave, all hell breaks loose just outside of both of those compounds. It's really hard to describe the feeling of exhilaration flying home because you've just taken care of the guys on the ground. The best part of it all was knowing that they were okay. I was literally probably a minute and a half from safing up weapons and turning and heading back to Kandahar, and then all hell broke loose in a matter of 30 seconds. It's never going to happen exactly like you trained or practiced. Every football team has the best game plan in the world until the kickoff, and then everything changes.
Hey, Trashman. Hey, thanks for joining us here on Micro Journeys. It's a pleasure having you here. We've known each other for a number of years, and it's exciting to actually have the opportunity to sit down and to give the audience an opportunity to hear a little bit about yourself and, take away a lot of the cool stories that you've been able to share with me. So
Awesome. And it's great to be here, and great to see you. It's been a little while since we had a chance to get together, and look forward to chatting here for the next hour or so.
yeah. So let's kind of kick this off with a little of your background. Where did you grow up? And then ultimately, how did the Air Force come into your life?
Grew up in a little town called Paris, Tennessee. So not to be confused with Paris, France. Obviously, it's about a town of about I don't know, 6 or 8 thousand people. Small town, West Tennessee. Um, kind of rural farming town, and played sports. Big into football, big into baseball. Growing up, um, loved everything I did back there. Loved it so much so that I'm going to wind up moving back there here in the not too distant future to kind of get back and settle down a little bit and slow down a little bit. Um, I don't think I don't think I had any different upbringing than any other young kid would that likes sports and likes being outside all the time. And somewhere along the line, I guess I'd say 10th grade or so, we had planes fly over all the time from Fort Campbell. We were about an hour from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So there's planes and helicopters flying over quite a bit on low level, what's called low level routes. So they're about 500 feet off the ground. And it was somewhere in there that I said, I want to go to the Air Force Academy. Um, Not from a military family, but it just kind of suddenly started becoming a little bit of a bug, and was had the best high school guidance counselor in the world who had helped a couple of other students get into academies, and she was great. The local congressman was great for that district. And night before I graduated high school, I found out I was going to the Air Force Academy. So it was I would say a great childhood growing up. Mom and dad are awesome. Both still here, so that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to moving back there to kind of take care of them or look after them. And then off and running in the Air Force after that.
Now, when you joined the Air Force Academy, or you went to the Air Force Academy, was it with the sole purpose to become a pilot, or was it something that naturally just kind of worked its way in?
I wanted, and again, I can't. I've had a lot of people ask, what made you want to become a pilot, and I can't put my finger on exactly what it was, other than I like engineering and I like big, even growing up, big pieces of equipment, tractors, trucks, anything that was mechanical was cool. Then I started seeing the planes and everything flying over, and I think somewhere along the way, the light switch went off in my head, and I was like, I want to fly. And I got to the academy, and that was kind of my whole focus. Once I got there, I was lucky enough to play football for a year. Banged up my knee and my shoulder about, I don't know, 6 months apart. And so I kind of figured it was it's time to worry more about flying airplanes and staying medically qualified than a career in football that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it's what position did you end up playing?
I was recruited as a running back, but played defensive back at the academy.
That's awesome. And a big passion for football. I
Oh,
totally, resonate with your interest there. I mean, what a great sport. So, you're at the academy now, and you ultimately decide that you want to become a pilot. And I guess the question that I would start out with is, when you became a pilot, they assign call signs, right? How did you get Trashman?
Most of most call signs come about from usually one of three things: something stupid you did flying, something that's related to your name. Like I've got a couple of friends that are last name are Campbell and their call sign is Soup. Um, and then the last one is usually something stupid you did on the ground. And a lot of times alcohol is involved with that, at a
Yeah.
party or something like that. And mine falls into the third category. I had gone through pilot training, which is about a year. Then we go through, back then at least, we went through what was called lead in fighter training. And that is just learning the basics of, flying a jet at a higher performance level. It was a T-38, which was the second airplane we flew, but we were now doing more things with it than we did in pilot training. Then after that, I went to fly A-10s. So I get to England Air Force Base, Louisiana, and get settled in there. It's right after Desert Storm was over. The A-10s down there had kicked ass, done great. Everybody was kind of riding a little bit of a high, and so I'll say the competition was pretty fierce among the squadrons on anything that we did, whether it was a game called Crud, which is played on a pool table, or intramural basketball or softball or whatever. So we had a golf tournament, and it was a wing golf tournament. So the squadrons are competing against each other. Except this one has a little bit of a twist. Some of the holes had obstacles around the green. Some of the holes you could only use one club. Some of the holes they had shots of whiskey called Jeremiah Weed on the tee box, and if you did a shot and teed off within 15 seconds, you got a stroke off. Some of the holes had, or you had string for mulligans, and then the last one that got me into getting my call sign was for every 9 cans of beer your team brought back at the end of the round, your team got a stroke off of the total score or their total score. So we get around, I don't know, around nine into the like ninth, 10th hole. And I was taking advantage of the shots before teeing off, and we were having a pretty good time. And came up with a great idea, at least at the time I thought it was. And so I told my cart buddy, I said, Buster, I said, hey, why don't you jump in with the other two guys? I've got an idea. He's like, all right. And so he jumps in with the other two guys we were playing with. And I proceed to drive around the course, heckling the other teams or other
Yeah, the
foursomes.
golfers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other golfers as they're teeing off, heckling them a little bit. But while I'm doing that, I'm opening the garbage cans and pulling out the empty beer cans, smashing them, throwing them in the golf cart, and then driving off to the next hole. So we get to the end of the round, and needless to say, I'm not in, I'm a mess. I
Yeah.
guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
In many ways, I'm a mess.
Yeah, because you've been drinking, you
Been
have
drinking, I've been getting
garbage all
through, yeah,
over. Yeah.
been talking smack to everybody that's playing. And so we get back there, and I think we were one of the worst scores, gross scores. But with our strokes that we got off for between the shots we drank, and then I came back, and I think it was 180 something beer cans, I think, or some crazy number of beer cans. I don't remember because I I had been drinking out of a few of them over the course of the day. Um, so we wound up getting like 20 strokes off just for that. So we went from being towards the bottom, maybe third, fourth, fifth from last to I believe we finished second place. We didn't win, but we wound up finishing second
Yeah, so
place.
your
Yeah.
strategy wasn't too bad.
So you get your call sign, like I said, and they have naming ceremonies and everything. And different squadrons and different aircraft types do it differently. Different locations do it differently. So in this case, we're at the pro shop in the clubhouse, and one of the guys tells the squadron commanders like, "Hey, let's do a naming right now for Hicks." And Wiley's like, "Okay." So they get a whiteboard out real quick, and what you usually do is you write up or people yell out nomination names for the call sign, and they'll put
Okay.
them up on the whiteboard.
So you'll just have an audience of people to be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
like Cam soup," like
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the guys in the squadron will yell out, some random names, and then they have to have a rationale behind it. What And I'd been there for I think I've been there for a couple months. So I'd been there long enough to do some flying and do some, and be out with the guys and this and that. So enough time to have a few call signs. But the guy that asked the squadron commander to do the naming, um, had one in mind, which was Trashman. And so when we did it, he called it out and he called the reason why, and everybody's like, "Yep, that's it."
Oh,
Yay,
man.
everybody cheered, and from that point forward, it was Trash Man.
That's awesome. That's a fun story. I mean, hearing others that served with you, call you trash man. I think this is the first time we've actually talked about it.
Yeah, I
So,
think so. I think so. Like I think we've talked bits and parts of it. We've never talked the whole story.
well, the part that I'm a little jealous on here is that we need to now go play a round of golf with
Yes.
these parameters in mind. I don't think that there's another way we can play. I
Yeah,
think that
exactly.
has to be it.
That is the best way to play.
So you had mentioned that you had a variety of different platforms, and I believe the one that you flew the most was the A-10,
It
correct?
was. It was.
So why don't you describe the A-10 a little bit?
When I first started flying it, it was I would describe it as an aircraft or a jet that's easy to learn how to fly, but it's hard to really fly it well, which means employ the weapons on it and make it do what you want it to do in a combat scenario. Because you've got three radios that are coming through your helmet. You've got a number of different weapons available to you. You've got a huge gun, obviously, right underneath the cockpit, in the nose, the 30 millimeter. So the airplane itself, I didn't think was too hard to fly, but to employ it was where it became much more of a challenge and much more difficult. The crazy thing is, you know, when I first started flying it in 1990, 91, I guess, it had, I don't know, we had almost no real technology in it. No, there's no such thing as GPS. We dropped all the bombs. We're manually
Interesting.
adjusted for dropping the bombs. Same thing for shooting the gun. None of that was computerized at the time, but it was just happening. The first version of a thing called Lasty was coming out, and that allowed us to now start getting a computerized bomb sight when we're diving, doing dive bomb deliveries, a computerized strafe sight, gun sight for the jet. So that was the beginning of what became a lot of technology to go in that airplane over the last 30 years, and they're still adding technology to it now.
So rewind a little bit here. I mean, how would you get the coordinates for something, right? I mean, I'm thinking of this almost kind of like having a blindfold and throwing darts,
A little
and
bit.
you're hoping for the best, but I mean, there's not a lot to gauge. How are you doing this without GPS and all these other?
It was extremely difficult. When I was down in Louisiana, my first base, like I told you, was England Air Force Base, which has since closed in Alexandria. So everything's flat down there, and so we do low levels down at 100 feet or 300 feet, and you do a lot of navigation by reading the water tower names to know what town you're going by, and
Interesting.
then looking at your map that you had in the cockpit with you, because we didn't have a moving map, we didn't have GPS at the time. We had what's called an inertial navigation system, but that system would drift as much as a half mile or more an hour every now and then, depending on which airplane you had. And so you had to constantly update it by going over a known point, and then updating the system, and then it would immediately start drifting again. But
So it
uh,
sounds like you had to do quite a bit of prep work. Know
we
the
did.
environment that you were going to be in, know what the mission objective was, and really hone in on. Okay, it's kind of like when you visit a new town prior to all the GPS navigation. You look for landmarks,
Yeah,
right? Hey,
yeah,
where's the red fire hydrant? Okay, I turn here, kind of thing. But from a pilot perspective, am I getting this right?
that's exactly right. When we did close air support, and we'd have controllers on the ground or forward air controllers in the air, the big thing was once you got that what's called a 9 line, which that was our attack brief, so that was the target coordinates, the initial point where they want you to start from to run in to hit the target, the heading and the distance from where the initial point is to the target, all the details, what kind of effects. So then you would figure out what kind of weapon you wanted, what type of attack formation you wanted to run. And now, because there's only one person in A-10, so if you had a two ship or a four ship, then you had to relay it to the whole team on the radio at why you built the game plan, the attack plan in your mind. And it was a challenge because you would depart the IP, and if you were doing low altitude attack where you obviously can't see as much at 100 feet or 300 feet, we do something called a pop-up attack. So you get a couple of miles from the target, and you turn the plane away from the target and you pop so you can look out your left or right side and see where the target area is. Well, as you talk the brief, you look and see if there's any streams or rivers or fields or houses or buildings that are going to kind of tip you off to know where to look. So, we called them funneling features to kind of help keep us, funnel us towards the target.
Because you're off the beaten path now,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, you're
Yeah.
flying, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I got to see what the surrounding area
Yep.
is. You pop up like
Pop.
this,
Yep.
but then you got to get back.
Yeah. Then you got to roll. So, usually if you're running this way, turn 30 degrees maybe or so, pop up, look, 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 try to find the target. And then you roll a lot of times, over and pull back down towards the horizon to get lined up on the target.
Wow.
So, it was fun. It was, once you got comfortable doing it, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can sense that the first time, or maybe the first few times, it almost feels like a sense of lost hope, or like, I mean, there's a fear that okay, now I'm exposing myself.
Yeah,
I don't know where I'm at. This is new terrain, but then I got to roll back in. But after you get more accustomed to it,
right.
it feels like it's okay. This is the way to operate, right?
And that's the case, back then, because the A-10s were kind of built for the European battlefield to fight the Russian hordes of tanks and everything coming across, and so most of the training was done at low altitude, so you would minimize your exposure to surface-to-air missiles or AAA, those kind of things. Um, so it really was an art, and you could really perfect it with but you had to practice it.
Yeah.
And then over time, as the threats around the world have kind of evolved or changed, we do a lot of medium altitude stuff now, or have been for the last 20 years or so, and that's a um, totally different ball of wax as far as the tactics and how you do that or how you work with that to stay above the threat as opposed to being in the middle of the threat and trying to dodge and duck and get in and out.
Interesting. So kind of using the football analogy here, it's like being a skilled running back, then pivoting over to defense. You understand the game, but you're still learning, okay, this new position, the new way that this environment's going to
Yep.
be, and the more repetition you have in that particular space, it allows you to, fulfill the
E
mission requirement.
exactly, exactly, and I think that's what has historically made our Air Force so great, over most any other country is we fly more hours a year and do more simulator time a year than, in pretty much any country out there. At least that was the case before I retired. I think it still probably is, but it's that repetition is what makes us so good with air to ground, with air to air, with all of the different missions that we fly is, we just practice it more.
So you have a number of hours, flying the A-10. Are there any particular missions that jump out to you that you say, you know what, this one was an interesting one?
There got about, I don't know, 600 hours or so of combat time in the A-10, over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I think the one that probably of all of them, there's a few that stand out, but the one that stands out the most, we had a mission one day where we were supporting a, special ops, Marine special ops detachment, and they were in one compound in this river valley, and there was another, group of Marines in another compound about a half mile away, and they'd been getting and our job was just to do overwatch, and it'd been fairly quiet. We go back and forth to the tanker. Usually, we would stay over top for about 4 hours, and then the next set of A-10s would come in. Next two ship would come in, and then they would sit over top just to make sure things
So
are.
Overwatch, is it like a scout to just make sure that you could just see the area? Overwatch is in kind of seeing where movements were, a combination of all?
A little bit of everything.
Okay.
We had maps with the compounds, and the compounds are like a mud hut with maybe a 6 foot wall all around it, or a 10-foot wall all around it, because that's how all of the little villages were. And the village was empty. It was all, just about anybody that was in that village, or any of those villages in that area, were going to be Taliban. And so what the Marines had done is they were working with Afghan commandos that they had trained, so Afghan special forces. And so what would happen is the sun would come up, they'd run up a U.S. flag out of the compound, and then the Afghan commandos would start talking smack on loudspeakers to the Taliban to try to coax them out into a fight. And so we've got our targeting pods, and we're looking in different areas and different building numbers that the ground guys are wanting us to take a look into. And it's mostly quiet. There's a little bit of chatter on the radios with the Taliban, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but nothing was really going on. And about 10 minutes before we were due to leave, the next two ship was coming in. I was kind of briefing them up on what was going on. All hell breaks loose just outside of both of those compounds. They start taking fire from all sides, and so it turns into a big fight really, really fast. And so I was like, all right, I've got enough gas, or we've got enough gas to stay here another 20, 25 minutes. And the other guys were just getting on board. So we did what's called coordinated twos. So brought them in and kind of made us a four ship.
Okay. So
And
you guys were flying with 2 already,
Mhm.
then the other 2 just join you,
Exactly.
and now you've had all 4 of you guys
Yep.
now, addressing the situation that's
Right.
happening down
Right.
below. Okay.
And so, we start working with the JTAC, which is the Joint Terminal Air Controller on the ground. So I'll say he's the ground commander's mouthpiece for the Air Force or for any air assets. So the ground commander's telling him what he wants hit. The JTAC is working up the 9 lines and the target information, and he's passing it up to the air. Unless they want specific weapons, it's up to us to figure that out. In that case, it was a lot of rockets and guns, because we were strafing and shooting very close to the friendly positions and kind of yelling at them to get down behind the compounds while we were trying to shoot the fighters that were outside the compounds, ambushing them. And I would say in a matter of 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we out of all the airplanes, we spent every bullet, bomb, and rocket. And the best thing was we got to see the commandos at the base at Kandahar a couple days later when they came out of the field, and we're getting a little R&R. And they happened to come in the squadron one day when I was getting going in to fly, and so we got patches from the Afghan commandos, and the guys were talking to them like, "Man, that was the most awesome thing ever. You guys were screaming, yelling at us to get down." They were literally outside the compound throwing grenades over the compound walls.
Almost like a guardian angel for these guys. I mean,
And
without your support, I mean, they're stranded just having a,
yeah,
basically a fist fight down below, right? And so here you are, with the 4 planes,
yep,
on top, uh, starting the mission, fully loaded with all your missiles and all the rounds and the such, and then you leave and nothing's left, basically, an arms perspective,
yeah,
and the problem's neutralized.
yeah, and the problem solved. And it's one of those things. I think I don't. It's really hard to describe the feeling of exhilaration flying home, because you've just taken care of the guys on the ground, and you're wondering, making sure, hoping that nobody got hurt or anything down there, because you don't have time to talk about that. It's uh, too much of a madhouse trying to get targeting information, figure out what you're going to do with the airplanes, what weapons you're going to use, where you're going to roll in from to employ the weapons. So you don't have time to talk about, hey, is everybody doing all right down there? Or hey,
Yeah.
what's the score of the ball game, or anything like
Well,
that.
and
So getting to see him a couple of days later and finding out they only, one of the guys had a scratch on his arm from one of the grenades that
oh,
was thrown over. Was That's like that was the to me, that was the best part of it all, was knowing that they were okay.
well, and one of the interesting parts of this story is that mentally, you think about all scenarios, right? An example is when people think about, hey, if someone breaks into my house, here's what I'm going to
Yeah.
do. I'm going to do the following, and all of a sudden, there's images of things like John Wick. I'm going to go and I'm going to take care of this kind of
Yeah,
stuff, right?
exactly.
And mentally, you prepare yourself. You think that you're going to do this, but reality is when a situation happens, you have a split second to react, right? I mean, in the way that you just described this, I mean, you were ready to just hang it up for the day, probably, go enjoy a cold beer or something like that, and all of a sudden, the what hits the fan,
Yep.
and now it's game time. You got to go. I mean, and there are people's lives at stake, and there was no mental prep for this. It was, just another day out. It sounds like another flying day, correct?
Yeah, we'd been working with these guys for a while, and we'd employed quite a bit of weapons in the previous couple weeks, in that area. But you, it's human nature, you kind of start winding your brain down a little bit. I hear the other guys check in. All right, I'm going to tell them where to hold, where to look, what's been going on, what's been happening with the radios, what the Taliban are saying or doing. And I was literally probably a minute and a half from safing up weapons and turning and heading back to Kandahar, and then all hell broke loose. In a matter of 30 seconds or a minute when they tried to ambush both compounds at the same time.
Jeez, and I mean, what 1 minute would have done for the people down below. I
Yeah.
mean, you're just thinking about, uh, I mean, 60 seconds is the difference between maybe a ton of casualties to just a bad scrape on someone's arm. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
that's
Exactly.
geez, that's
Exactly. And it's all about, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
yeah, Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I think that applies in so many things in life. You got to have a plan. You got to think about it. You got to have experience with whatever you're doing, whatever it is in life. But guess what? When you go do something for real, or when you get into the real world, it's never going to happen exactly like you trained or practiced, or we're told, oh, this is this and this is going to happen.
Yeah,
Every football team has the best game plan in the world until the kickoff,
100%.
and then everything changes.
Well, and then there's the fight or flight aspect of things. I mean, not everyone is reactionary and able to go in and stand up to a fight, right?
True.
The
True.
people, they all react differently,
That is
and
very true.
fortunate for amazing people down on the ground, they had you in the sky being able to protect here.
Yeah, it was, that year, for me in Afghanistan, that was the best year of my career, hands down. Was what's called Operations Group Commander at Kandahar. So there was 12. I was in command of 12 squadrons at the time, and so I got to fly in, with the other guys in the C-130s and the MC-12s and some of the other aircraft. Fly missions around Afghanistan with them. But obviously, the bulk of what I did, I think I flew. I'd have to go back and look at my logbook. I know it was over 100. I think I flew like 108 A-10 sorties that year or something like that. So it was. Yeah, I remember leaving, getting on the C-17 to leave, and thinking, all right, for 1 year of my life, I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing here on this planet. And so I was tired, but it was a kind of a fulfilling moment, being with the team and being with a bunch of great Americans.
So you've been able to not only be a pilot within the Air Force, but have a variety of different roles and responsibilities that were very strategic, right? And the way that we were introduced was your uh, influence and impact in wargaming activities, right? So why don't you describe a little bit about that portion of your career?
Yeah, when I came out of Afghanistan the second time I was there for a year, I was in command of all of the U.S. and NATO forces and non-NATO forces or countries that were building the Afghan Air Force. And so I never thought I'd be flying, or in a cockpit in Afghanistan with an Afghan in the cockpit with me.
Yeah.
First time I was there, but the second second time around, that's exactly what I was doing.
How was the communication with that? I mean, was it a pretty easy, dialogue? Was there a language barrier? I mean, how did that work?
There was always a language barrier. We lived our wing lived inside of the Afghan Air Force Base at Kabul airport, and some of the Afghan pilots spoke really good English, and then some of them, because they all came, most of the fixed wing guys came here to the U.S. to do their training,
Okay.
and then they would come back over there. The A-29, which is it's called the Super Tucano. It's a single engine propeller airplane, 50 caliber guns in the wings. So, it's
Yeah.
kind of like I felt like I was flying a World War II fighter. It was kind of cool. Um, some of the guys really took to it quickly, both the language and the flying. And then it's just like in the US, some guys had a little bit more trouble and you had to work with them a little bit more. Um, but it was always unique because they'd try to sometimes make the airplane do something that the airplane wasn't supposed to do. So you had to keep a close eye while you were in training with them.
Well, now,
And it
and
was fun.
with the training here in the US, I mean, was it things like, red flag that they would get access to, or is it more
No,
direct
very
one-on-one training?
yeah, direct one-on-one training and very very basic in nature compared to some of the other countries that have much more robust air forces, because the Afghan Air Force was decimated when the Russians took over. They didn't have an air force to speak of other than Russian Mi-17s, and then when we went in there, they started trying to build and create the Afghan Air Force right away, and then I was lucky enough to command it from, 2006 summer of 2016 to the summer of 2017.
Interesting.
So it was fun. But going back to your question on the
Yeah.
strategy thing, I came out of there, out of Afghanistan. I went to be the director of strategy, wargaming, and assessments at the Pentagon for the Air Force. And
Now, was this your first rotation into the Pentagon?
I managed to make it 28 years before getting pulled into the vortex.
I was gonna say,
So
it says a lot about why you're always so happy.
yeah, yes, exactly, exactly right. Um, so yeah, it was a lot of fun. The job was a lot of fun. The Pentagon was exactly what I expected the Pentagon to be as far as a bureaucracy. But I had, as a director of strategy and wargaming, I had a little bit more leeway than a lot of folks that were in like budget positions or programming positions or, those kind of jobs in the Pentagon. I had a little bit more leeway because at that point, um, we were writing and drafting a new national defense strategy, which meant new strategies had to be made for the services. Um, and we had a pretty aggressive timeline on that, and when they wanted it done, how fast we were going to be able to get it done, and then the wargaming aspect. We did a we were in the planning stage when I got there. It happened the next. We did it the next summer in Hawaii. We were doing a future war game against China in the Pacific, and it was set in the 2030s. And so we were looking at a combination of current capabilities and then a combination of future capabilities that we thought we would have and we thought they might have in the 2030s. So the build up to that was pretty intense because you're trying to figure out, where we're going to be in the technology world, where they're going to be in the technology world. Some of the things when we get to the 2030s, I'm sure we'll hit spot on, and then some other things we'll never see coming.
Yeah,
But if
this sounds a lot like, some of the stuff that the Office of Net Assessment,
Yeah,
would be, interested in as well, correct?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly, and it's you have to do them, and you have to do. I think different organizations or different services and agencies up there have to do their own, so you can kind of compare and contrast the results you find from each of them. And I think that was a case with ours because we were running what was, I would say, a high level classified war game at the same time as we were running a more secret level war game, and the results were quite a bit different. So when we got started, getting the results and looking at the results when we got done, was quite a bit different. So the recommendations that I sent and briefed the chief of staff and secretary of the Air Force on were also quite a bit different then as a result.
So, a lot of the listeners, they come from a variety of different areas for this podcast. Some are heavy technology focus. Some have extensive, government backgrounds and the such. One of the things that some may not be tracking is what is a war game and how is that just generally structured, right? There's different teams and the such, but give, I guess, kind of a generalized example of what that is.
Yeah, you take and there's you can build these any way you want to build them as far as depending on what you're looking for outcomes or looking to analyze or assess. But normally you have a blue team, which is the friendly forces, a red team, which is the bad guys, whoever it may be, and a white team, and they're kind of the referees, and they're also the ones that make the scenario and then keep the scenario going throughout the process. And so most war games take a little while, some months to sometimes a year, year and a half to build up to, because the white team has to build a narrative for what is the background story for how these red and blue are about to come to a fight.
So an
What
example of this would be uh, uh, there has been, an economic downturn
Yeah,
in said country,
yeah,
and that has caused major distress from exports that are going out and something like
yeah,
that. They would give
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely. And you can come up with we would sit around and brainstorm and come up with 1,000 little injects and inputs to put in to make this country want to do this or this country want to do this. And so then you give the blue forces and the red forces what they're going to have for assets as far as military assets to fight, what the rules of engagement are for each side. And normally, what you do with the red forces is you have somebody that is an expert. And, again, I'll just use either Russia or China or, Iran, pick a country. You have somebody that studied them, knows their rules of engagement, knows their systems, knows how they think, knows how they fight. You'll put that person in command of those forces, and he's got a bunch of people working for him. And they're trying to figure out moves. And then the blue side is the same, kind of the same thing. It's like a red flag exercise, except it's on steroids. It's not You're not actually flying airplanes most of the time. You're not actually doing this is more tabletop, doing it with computers and inputting moves and inputting what you're doing. So that you build the narrative with the white force, they build the story, they build the background, they provide, what force structure each side's going to look, who the commander is, how big it's going to be. Then they keep giving injects, and then leads up to the game, and you get to in this case we had 2 weeks for the game. We had about with U.S. and allied forces, we had I think about 400 people there in Hawaii at Camp Smith, and then you get rolling, and you're in a giant. In this case, we were in a giant warehouse, more or less, and it's partitioned off. And then this side figures out based off of what the storyline is and what rules of engagement are, what different restrictions they have put on them from the political side. They, you know, each side puts in their moves for the first shots or whatever. And so they'll do that, and they'll do it in each move can be a 24-hour time slice, or it can be a 2 days time slice or something along those lines. And then what happens is they put their moves in, the red puts their moves in, then you have a half day off or so, and the white team assesses each side what they decided to do for their first moves of the conflict. Then they figure out what was destroyed on either side,
So
and then they go back now to another move or to the next move. So it just depends on how far you want to take it.
so it's kind of like input comes in from both teams. Hey, I shot off. I'm going to just use a simplified version. 20 missiles
Yeah,
at this asset, and the white team will come in and say, okay, good. You've knocked out these four assets with the 20 missiles. But as a result of this, this was what happened as you were doing this
yeah.
portion.
As you were doing this, you were also getting shot, or you lost 2 aircraft, or you shot 20 missiles, but you lost, you had 2 airplanes shot down as a result of it. So that's where the white force is critical for them to be competent and understand the systems
Interesting.
to um, make sure something's not getting skewed.
Yeah.
Because anything you could bring out of that, it's not gonna be 100% truth data, but it's gonna give you some trends.
And it gives, at least my interpretation on this, it gives insight on a set of possible scenarios so
Yeah.
that, it just puts more critical thought around a specific region that conflict is kind of brewing, right?
Yep.
So that way it's not, okay, you know, binary kind of situation. We would just go in and attack these guys and we would just win. It's more of a, okay, here's how an attack could go.
Yeah.
Here's what it would have from an economic perspective, potentially. Here's what I mean, all these different kind of, I guess, micro scenarios to evaluate before an actual, move is made on the United States in real life. I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's what the take
E
is, correct?
exactly, and that's, one of the things we always looked at or tried to look at after the fact was if you do a war game and it's only, say, 2 weeks and the conflict goes much longer than that, then as much as anything now that war game becomes also a logistics fight to keep your troops, keep your aircraft, keep your weapons forward where they need to be, um, and keep moving them from the rear up. And so a lot of times, if you only do it for 2 weeks and then you don't do like a follow-on assessment of how the logistics would look, you get to the end, you're like, well, okay, that was kind of great. We know how it is for 2 weeks, but now what if we do this for 2 months or 6 months or 8 months,
Yeah,
a
Russia,
year?
Ukraine is a
Yeah,
good example of
yeah,
this.
it's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Russia had all the weapons and forces in the world to do what they thought they were going to do initially, but then what they found out is a lot of their equipment was crap, and their forces were certainly not as strong as they thought they were going to be, and so they made a lot of good early advancements, but then they got rolled up
Yeah.
because they got isolated because they really don't do logistics well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just remember seeing a lot of the media outlets saying this conflict's going to be over quickly. Ukraine is, all intents and purposes, hosed,
Yeah,
and the reality of this was not even close to that. I mean,
yeah,
it's still going on
yeah.
today, right?
It's vastly different.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a this conflict I think will be a good case study for a whole number of different things, both uh, how modern fights may happen, drone advances. There's a number of things with this fight that are going to be interesting to look at because that Russia is trying to use really World War I tactics, trench warfare, moving people forward, trying to kill Ukrainians through mass. The Ukrainians are trying to be a little bit more agile because they don't have as many forces, so they're trying to be a little bit more. Um, they're trying to conserve their forces a little bit more, I guess is the best way of putting it. So, yeah, it's going to be a good case study when it's all said and done. There's a lot of lessons being learned every day right now.
yeah, and you kind of led into something that is one of the items that I continue to think about as we're talking about this. Everything from the examples of the A-10 with not having the GPS kind of at the very early onsets to things like drones, for example, impacting modern conflicts. How has technology really impacted the overall strategy from an Air Force perspective, and then by extension, the platforms that you've been fortunate enough to fly in?
I use the A-10 as a great example because I talked about when I first started flying it. It was a manual airplane for the most part. We had an INS, um, but then in 2000, or no, I'm sorry, about 1996, I was at the 422 test squadron as a test guy, operational test pilot, and we got this thing called Iggy, which was GPS. And so now suddenly we had this GPS thing, and we're like, okay, how do we use this to make the airplane more lethal with the Lasty systems? And they kept evolving the Lasty systems and making them more accurate and better with the different weapons and the gun. And so, it started becoming a more lethal airplane. As we went through the 2000s, you kept getting more stuff on the airplane. Targeting pod. Now all of a sudden you got a targeting pod. So now at 10,000 feet, I can see somebody, um, you know, walking around in a compound or underneath trees or whatever, whatever the case may be. Now I can get even more precise with targeting. In the, I think it was around 2010, 11 time frame, we got a helmet mounted sight. So now I've got a monocle that I can see a lot of the stuff that I normally see in the cockpit. I can now see with my eye, even while I'm looking outside the cockpit, one side or the other. I don't have to come back into the screens. Now it's got even more weapons that have um, been approved for use on the airplane. It's got even more technology coming in with better radios and newer radios. So it, technology has changed everything we do so much, even old aircraft like the A-10. It's kept it a very lethal airplane.
Has do you think that it's had, a negative impact on some of the prep work where, pilots today may take, for granted the fact that they have technology on their side to help with these things? I mean, you're talking about, you were using landmarks as you were kind of, flying down below and really studying maps and, ensuring that you knew when you rolled back in where you were
Yeah.
in the overall space. Do you think that now with this enhancement of technology and I mean, I know just driving around and having GPS, I don't really memorize a lot of streets like I used to. I mean, that's the trade-off. Do you think that that same thing is happening in with the technology integration?
I think it is, but it's hard to quantify how much because um, just like you're saying with the GPS and, streets and not memorizing as many as you used to, there's a level of airmanship that goes away a little bit as you bring on all of this technology. So it's just one less thing you have to think about. But at the same time, it's doing that for a reason. So one less thing I have to think about. That means I can think about two or three other things that are now on the airplane that weren't on the airplane before. So you can make the argument some basic airmanship skills have atrophied a little bit, but it's also enabled us to put even more capability onto the airplane at the same time that might overwhelm them if they didn't otherwise have the GPS capabilities, the better radios, ability to coalesce information quicker. So it's a little bit of a trade off.
Sounds like the benefits of technology far supersede some of the downfalls. Is what
I
I'm getting.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree with that.
So, kind of circling back to your career, one of the other major milestones you had was achieving the rank of Brigadier General, which is not only a testament to your ability to have such flexibility in being a pilot. An effective pilot, but also helping to work at the Pentagon and do some of these big strategic types of, war games and planning and all of these different types of items. How did you, I guess, kind of observe the transition into being a one-star general? How did your role and responsibility change when that happened?
It was, and it's funny to roll it back a little bit or rewind a little bit more than that. When I got in the Air Force, again, I wasn't from a military family, didn't know what to expect. I just knew I wanted to fly. And I'll never forget being at England Air Force Base as a lieutenant. We're all standing around the squadron bar one Friday afternoon. We're kind of just BSing about, hey, what do you want to do with your career? Where you want to go? And everybody's got different things. Some folks had fathers that were in the Air Force and were high rank and stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I'd like to make it 20 years and retire as a lieutenant colonel and be maybe an ops officer of a fighter squadron, which is like the deputy commander of a fighter squadron. I wasn't setting my goals very high because I frankly, didn't think I would ever even have a sniff or a look, and didn't even think about being a general at a lieutenant, at the lieutenant level. Um, as it rolled on, you get more and more responsibilities, more and more responsibilities. You lead more units or organizations. Your squadron commander is a lieutenant colonel, and your group commander and wing commander is a colonel. And I was at NORAD when I got promoted to one star, and I didn't know what to expect, But the biggest thing, one of the biggest things I'll say is the higher you go, the lonelier it gets. Because if you're a wing commander, you can't call anybody in the wing to get advice because those are guys that are working for you. Well, guess what? You go up one more rank, that number of people you can call starts getting smaller and smaller. So it's taking a career of leadership opportunities and hopefully being able to pull from some of that experience to make decisions and then reaching out to your counterparts and to see, if you had something come up, either a personnel decision or something with one of the squadrons in the wing or something with one of the groups or whatever. Um, the advice you were able to get kind of got smaller and smaller, and it's understandable. So you wound up making, or I remember winding up making a lot of decisions where I'm like, oh, I hope this works.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of go with best gut feel and best experience I've got on this, but
Yes, experience, actual lessons learned in
yeah,
being in the environments, your just general training. You just go with your gut and
yeah,
you hope that it's aligned with, what the right decision is, right?
yeah, and it goes back to I think the way they do promotions by and large are good because by the time you get to be to that level of having a chance to be promoted to 1 star, you've had enough experiences in your career that you're going to be able to usually make a very informed decision, even if you don't have a lot of time to make it or you don't have a lot of ability to reach out to others to make it. There's no substitute for experience, and I mean, even in leadership, there's no substitute for that because if you don't, you the military does it well also, where you start out leading smaller units and smaller organizations, and then they give you a little more responsibility if you did with that, did well with that, and then a little more responsibility. And they keep stepping it up along the way. So I think they do a good job overall, and there is no substitute for experience. I think when it comes to making some of those tough decisions you have to make once you get to the high levels.
So describe a little bit about your time over at NORAD, right? And give a little description of what NORAD is.
So it's a North American Air Defense Command. So that's a combined uh, U.S. and Canadian organization, and its task is to protect the airspace of the United States and protect the airspace of Canada. So more or less North America. Um, we do that through a number of different ways, different radar systems they have. A lot up in Alaska and northern Canada to try to catch any early warning for any attacks that might be coming at our airspace. Here in the lower 48, same thing. Trying to get early warning. We're in command in the lower 48 of ACA units, and these are fighter aircraft that are sitting alert all around the country.
Would I think it was about 3 years ago, there was a weather balloon that,
Yeah.
went across the United States. Would that be something that
Oh,
NORAD would be the first ones to
yeah,
kind of identify?
that's right in their wheelhouse.
Okay.
NORAD, I think in that case, I think it was NORAD Alaska was the first one to identify it, and then NORAD Canada tracked it across Canada, and then the lower 48 continental US NORAD organization tracked it.
So any
Um,
flying object that goes into that region is pretty much the, area that they cover, correct?
yep, yep, that's a good way of looking at it. Obviously, the National Capital Region is even more closely watched with even more assets to kind of look after it or protect it in DC.
Interesting. So, now that you've retired, you've stayed very busy, and it's a pretty unique set of things that are, eating up your time. I think we talked about your potential relocation and move,
Mhm.
but one of the things that I think is really fascinating is you've found yourself back in flying again quite regularly, right?
Yes, yes, stay pretty regular. I was very lucky before I retired. One of the casino owners here in town. I've known him for over 20 years when I was retiring, and he gave me an offer to come fly his Bombardier Global 6000 jet, and it was a pretty much brand new airplane. And so thought it over. I didn't have a huge desire to go to a defense contractor. All the time I'd spent in the military, in the test world, operational test world, and then all the time I had spent or the couple years I'd spent in the Pentagon doing the wargaming and stuff. This didn't. I don't know. It wasn't something that I wanted to stay with something I like doing, and I like flying.
Yeah.
And it would also afford me the opportunity to maybe do some other things too. Because have if we're not flying, then I've got the chance to do some other things as long as we're ready to go if we have to. So I chose to go that path. I love Las Vegas because got a lot of friends out here. I was based out here for about 10 years at Nellis Air Force Base, all total 3 different assignments. So there was almost no way to turn it down when I kind of weighed the pros and the cons of it. So been out here doing it for about 6 years now and enjoying the heck. We just got a brand new airplane, Global 6500. And so flying it's kind of cool going to pick up a brand new airplane at the Montreal factory. So
And I bet you
and
it
test
makes
flying
those
it.
international trips quite nice in the new plane, right?
Yes, yes, it gets you there in comfort and gets you there quick too. Again, we cruise at Mach 0.85 or 0.86 for
Oh,
the most
wow.
part.
Oh, you're humming
So
along.
yeah, so we're cruising along pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then now that you've ended your government portion of your career, it's given us the ability to work together, which
Yep.
has been extremely exciting. Being able to tap into an area that I think is really interesting. You've been influential in helping to bridge the gap between technology requirements and the actual operational use cases, without forgetting about the bigger strategy that happens with, not only the Air Force, but how the Pentagon operates.
Right.
So I'll just go out and say that it has been an absolute pleasure, not only having you as a friend, but working with you. And I really want to say, having you here on this podcast has been
Th-
really exciting.
Thanks. I've enjoyed that. From the time that we've had a chance to spend together and the time with TSS, it's been a great experience. I've enjoyed the heck out of it. I've enjoyed our friendship. I enjoy trying to give back a little bit, whether it's leadership lessons or whether it's trying to figure out the best way to, go after a new technology and see where it will best fit or where it will best could be used possibly in the future, especially by the military. And things are happening so fast now. If you're not doing that, you're going to wind up losing pace to somebody pretty quick. Um,
And under this administration, I mean, it's a really a ready, fire, aim kind of environment. So the pace at which things are operating, I
yeah,
mean, you're not really learning on the job. You have to be able to execute, or you're going to get left behind.
yeah, yeah. That's absolutely the case, and I don't see that going away anytime soon. China's racing as fast as we are. With everything AI and all other military technologies, all other commercial technologies for that matter. They're trying to either compete with us or steal from us, whatever they can to keep pace. And again, with AI and how fast it's evolving, I don't see this going away. And it's going to be interesting where we are even in 5 years from now. I mean, it's things are happening so fast. It's kind of crazy.
Well, the nice thing is that we're in the middle
Yeah,
of helping to influence a lot of these different, not only technology advancements, but understanding, the geopolitical ecosystem, how conflicts are, bubbling up, what the concerns are, and the such. So, Trashman, this was awesome.
thanks. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
I really appreciate the time, and looking forward to working together. But I mean, above and beyond, continuing our friendship down the road.
Absolutely. Same here, buddy. Same here.
All right, thanks, man.
Yep.